Alrighty, and good evening, everyone. Happy Sunday. It's almost over, but let's make the most of what we have left. Um, Before I get started, quick disclaimer: everything that you see in this video is not financial advice. It's merely just a market overview to get you more adapt to the markets. So first and foremost, the first thing I like to look at is just to see how our weekly candle closed on SPY here. From what I see, there's a longer wick above than it is below, showing slight signs of an inverted hammer. But what we can be thankful for is we are in a new higher low on the weekly structure compared to last week where we created a huge lower low and attempted to push upwards a little bit there. So back over to the daily time frame and I'll pull up my levels here. All right. So when I was charting everything out, it didn't nothing insane I would say really stood out to me as far as like all like other stocks and indices. It is nothing major I would say in the market. The only thing that's playing out, and I'm sure um whoever you are interested in taking a look at will all point out one thing, which is this head and shoulders that is trying to play out in SPY. Um, but we're not there yet. I don't think there is some massive upside because obviously we're on a downtrend overall. The whole market is. Um, but we do have some potential to see some sort of relief bounce and maybe push for the upper range of our expected ranges here. Our expected range is 603.35 and the lows are going to be 586.67. But first, we need to claim some price action over our strong pivotal point here. Even if we do not do this towards, during the week, we end up doing it towards the end of the week, closing body candle above our strong pivotal point here, so around 595. It's going to be, we're going to be changing the tides. It's going to lean more bullish than bearish for now. Obviously the trend is a little bit more bearish than bullish. Let's go through my bullet points here. All right, let's just talk a little bit more about the 595 level that I mentioned here. Okay, so this is our strong pivotal point. We can see is multiple touches. So the idea behind a pivot is something where price will move fluidly between, right? But recapturing it on a positive note, meaning being above it, would help you lean more bullish than bearish, right? So we'll see 595 here on a breakout retest, and then obviously a failure. Then breakout retest, and then complete breakout. Obviously, we just had a downtrend that was strong emotional response. But off of our bounce here, we had a retest, more downward pressure, retest again, and then we gapped up over it, right? And then even on our drop here, again, we fell right at this 595 level. So obviously there is some significance to this level. So I would be on the close lookout for any captures over 595. Pulling up our daily SMAs here. One thing I always like to look at on the as far as the daily chart, our 20 EMA and our 5 EMA are just going to be more of an assistance intraday. Uh, the 20 will it can either act as support and resistance. Likewise with the 5 EMA, more to see what the range for the day would be. but our 50 EMA here is gonna tell us if we do change trend, right? So we had a slight look below, but we've recaptured our 50 EMA, which is, a good sign of us trying to uphold the bullish trend that we're in. Um, as far as that, I think we can move on to QQQ. The pattern really that I saw was either inverse head and shoulders playing out. Otherwise, what we can do is look to have some bounce here, retest this 595, our key level here, and work its way to consolidate into these resistance points here, which I will provide you at the end of the live, as well as you can go back and watch the video again. Any bounce here, consolidation towards a breakout, which I am not too fond over, but like with the market, anything could happen. So just be on the lookout for any breaks over 596.39 for longs and any confirmation for puts. You can go underneath 595, but there is a few support levels here. The better risk to reward ratio would be waiting for 590.75 break for any puts to the downside. All right, and let's head over to the weekly. I'm going to lock these drawings so I don't keep destroying them. All right, and the weekly candle for QQQ, it's not as pretty. It's not leaning towards any hammer candle or anything like that. In a way, it is slightly an inverted hammer because we do have a longer wick, but the body is much smaller than SPY's, so I wouldn't classify it as that. It seems more of just a relief pressure from this long downward channel candle that we had last week. Just a lot of selling pressure. Seems more of a relief bounce here, and attempts to find value within this range. It the body of the candle is within our previous day's lower range. Oh, quickly before I move on as well, I'm not too sure if other people are aware of how to read candles, because a lot of people just assume, uh, you know, within the day you're just looking to see, obviously this wick or reject offer here, or it supports here, or whatever the case is. But what does it really mean? We have the top here is the high of the week. Our bottom here is the low of the week. The bottom of the body is what the opening print was for the week, and this is the closing. That's how we closed. So if you guys are ever curious how to read a candle, that's essentially what it is, and that goes for any time frame, right? Okay, now let's look at our daily chart here. Okay, so few things on the daily chart. We do have some sort of sloping resistance developing here that I would look out for if you do want to look for any upside. And obviously our strong pivotal point is right here where I drew this circle here. I'm seeing it moving a bit when I zoom in and out, which is weird. But so ideally you want to see price action capture above this strong pivotal point and attempt to break out of this little wedge that we're in for any upside, as well as for any downside. It would be similarly with our weak pivotal point at 567 here. It was previous resistance, broke over, and then it acted as somewhat of a support when we first initially had the strong selling. So if for any shorts, I would ideally look for any price action under these two key levels here. I will have all of these supports listed as well below. For me personally, I'm a little bit more neutral on QQQ, but as far as to the upside, I feel like there is more room as far as risk to ratio. There's less resistances above, and then we do have our gap, our value gap here. It's essentially an area where we still haven't had much price action or any volumes coming in. So it would be interesting to see price action attempt to climb up and just, it'll have a smooth ride straight up for the upside. And again, break out of this wedge is ideally what you're looking for something bullish. We'll retest these resistances here, may have a slight pullback, and then break through our resistances. I don't need to draw out the arrow for you, but you really want to look for, you don't want to chase when we start breaking out of this. You don't want to start chasing price action. You want to look for some type of breakout of this range, retest, and let's retest this level one more time to have some stronger push to the upside. And again, any holds over our strong pivotal point on the closing print will be indicative of a bullish week, right? You want to stay above here, anything below there the same way. Anything in between both the strong and the pivotal point, if we close anywhere in between our pivotal points here, it's essentially just neutral. The same goes with SPY. All right, let's move on to our, oh wait, there is one more thing I wanted to mention here with QQQ. One thing I noticed here was, obviously on our weekly chart we had some, it's been in an uptrend. We had an uptrend, created a lower high here and tried to recapture the range, right? But I drew a fib right here when we attempted to create higher highs and change the trend, right, for this 3 weeks. So from the bottom end of this range to the top of our range right before the gap down, I noticed that our golden zone, our 61.8 on our fibs is just a few cents over our strong pivotal point. So it'd be very interesting to see if we can recapture or at least retest that range for any strong upside, and as well as any break below it, indicates some more weakness in the market. IWM. All right, well, IWM, there is not too much to say. I would not go long on this. I'm hoping that we have some crazy news that would change everything that I'm saying here, but I do not like looking long on this at all. That doesn't mean that I think you guys should all short the market, right? Because we still have a chance to just consolidate, right? IWM doesn't really move a whole lot throughout a day or even throughout the week. So we can just have some consolidation here and just remain neutral for the remainder of the week. But there is a clear bear flag that's playing out here. You've seen before, I had my fibs here. So essentially this is your 50% right here is usually where I will draw 50% just to kind of get an idea of where recovery would take place. And this second line here is our 50% from this initial drop as opposed to the beginning of the downtrend here. So you just want to see price action break below this little wedge that we have here. And, there's a little bit of support on the way down, but if you do want to look long on IWM, I would not. I personally, I'm not a fan of playing it this week. We do have huge consolidation in this range as well for days on end. So there might not be some crazy price action here, but you do want to pay close attention to any strong selling, because any strong selling would be indicative of a clear weakness in SPY. So we do want to be, you know, cautious of how price action is moving, especially when you're going to play, other ETFs as well. If you do want to play a short, I would look for maybe a retest of this level around let's do the strong pivotal point around 224. I would look for more of a retest here if you wanted to short some price action that looks somewhat like a retest here, consolidate to break down, and your exit ideally could be the bottom end of our range. Ideally, how flags work, most of the time, the assumption is that if the bull flag or the bear flag completes, it's going to be some massive run up. Typically, it will just fill where it started from, retest that area if there's strength, and there's sellers or buyers involved, it will continue in that direction. But essentially how those flags work is we're just completing the structure, right? So this is point one and this is point two, small relief bounce, and we just retest point two again. So I I wouldn't go so far as to continue shorting below the low of the structure. As you can see, like I said, there's a lot of consolidation, so there's a lot of volume here to slow down price action. So I'd be cautious on any shorts, right? Anything significant on IWM would have to be under 217 for any significant downtrend. And then we'll just quickly look at my weirdly drawn head and shoulders that I'm trying to see if it plays on an DIA. So DIA is another ETF that it's essentially part of the Dow Jones, and it tracks similar things as SPY, except it's more niche and it doesn't cover as many large caps. So there tends to be slightly less volatility when the market is having some explosive moves. But it is worth mentioning because when we have uncertainty in the market where SPY is going in one direction, sometimes QQQ is exploding and IWM is just consolidating or is falling down, you look at stocks like this, like DIA, which is a lot of financial sectors in there, but it does create some type of balance in the market, where you'll feel a little bit more stable with price action. But you do want to pay attention to see if it starts to outperform SPY. So if it's going up quite a bit and SPY is somewhat lagging, SPY is generally your overall market, right? So if we start seeing DIA have some quick increase in pricing and SPY is starting to either consolidate or it's not moving much at all, it indicates that there is more caution in the market and people are less interested in putting their money in risky assets. So it's worth taking a look at and making sure that it's currently following SPY, so that's a good thing. Then I will go through quickly a few other things. So obviously our treasure bonds are down. It's declining with it obviously is going to decline when we have a growing market, but one thing I would like to mention about this is you want to be cautious on this going the opposite way of SPY, right? So if this starts having some strong buyers and it's going up quite a bit, and either SPY is going down or there's not much happening with SPY, um, that's when you know that there is less risk in the market, and it's more likely that we're going to see some deeper pullbacks on SPY. And next, let's go over. I'm just going through some of the bullet points. Of course, I have a bunch of tickets here, but I'm just going through some of the ones that stuck out to me. Um, your high yield bond this is essentially the market's credit appetite or risk appetite. So you want to see it, there's nothing significant happening with it right now. It is following, SPY's trend. I'm gonna go ahead and mute you. I'm sorry. So it is following a trend with SPY, but if this starts to decline fast, then if this starts to decline fast, then there is much less risk. People are more inclined to put their money in safer assets, right? All of our, huge investments for whatever gains that you expect to have out of, yeah, your Teslas, your Nvidias, your Apples, so on and so forth. Those all require some risk, some greater um, need to push money into the market, right? Rather than just putting money in assets and letting them sit as in bonds and yields and so on. All right, and then just wanted to point out this here, RSP. If you're not familiar with this, it's basically your overall market, but what it does is it equally weighs SPY, right? So SPY has a huge amount of large caps on there, right? So if we, for example, we see Apple's been on a huge bull run at the moment. It's shooting up, right? That will have a huge influence on SPY. So will Nvidia, so will any major large caps will sway the market, right? Especially SPY. SPY will feel the influence of those mega corporations, right? But if you look at your RSP here, it's not going to look at the corporations, mega volume that it's pouring into the market, right? It's going to look at what our overall market is really doing. So for now, it's following SPY, which is a good thing. But if it goes faster than SPY, that means that the large caps have more influence in the market at the moment. And let's see, our financial sector. I'm not going to talk too much on the sectors. I'm going to bring up a few of them because there is some news this week that could affect these. So it's worth noting and taking a look at. So for our XLF, which is our financial fund sector of SPY, I am just looking to see if we can hold over 47.44. This is really healthy for the overall market. The financial sector doing well typically means SPY will be doing well as well. So just heads up there. Let's see. I did notice our XLY. Here's our consumer discretionary, which is essentially your Amazon, your Apple. Basically, your discretionary is all of the stocks it's all the things that people spend money on, right? So, like more than half of our economy comes from us as people spending and buying things, right? So this kind of tracks that. So if you start seeing a decline here, then typically the economy is, one, not doing too well, and two, people aren't as willing to spend their money as opposed to having a growing economy where everyone's making money. There's more jobs and everyone's feeling more freely with their money, right? So one thing that I noticed for a while here is we were over all of our daily SMAs are 5 or 20 or 50, and they were all pointing up. Now we're starting to see some consolidation in these EMAs. They're grouping up, but not too worried until we start seeing a test of the 50. That's when I would start to get a little worried. But it is worth pointing out that, this huge run that we had over our EMAs kind of halted here after this dip down that we had on just before Christmas. And our last sector here I'm going to bring up is our XLV here. XRV is our healthcare sector. It's on a strong downtrend for quite some time now, since the beginning of September. It's been holding this channel amazingly. It even bounced off of it most recently this last week, and it's still within our channel. It's worth mentioning because usually when the economy starts to do bad, like starts to, turn for worst, this specific fund acts as a defensive stock. So defensive stocks are stocks that people can always rely on, right? You have your uh, Colgate, your Costco, your Walmart. These stocks, when everything goes down, or the economy's going down, Apple's crashing, Nvidia's crashing, Tesla's crashing, whatever the case is, these stocks will continue to be supported by everyday people like us, right? Because you need essentials. And so, obviously healthcare is an essential thing. But I just wanted to mention it because we are in a downtrend. So this is oddly enough fairly good for SPY. So you want this downtrend to hold. And let's see, our SOX here. SOX here is your semiconductor ETF. It's similar to SMH, but it does hold a bigger bag. One thing I just want to note here is that we were in this wedge for a bit. We broke out, seemed to fail earlier this Christmas. This is really where Nvidia had that little run up earlier this week. Um, so following this will, anything over 227.5 here is very, very good for the market. If we can close over to 2750 here, I do see Nvidia going even, higher than our previous high in the range, is like 140 or something like that. So if we can recapture out of recapture the sloping resistance here, turn this into a sloping support on the breakout retest, and then we push through to the upside. This is very good for our semis, so I am watching this closely. I do, hoping to take some Nvidia calls in the future. Not financial advice, but I am, this is something that I'm paying attention to most definitely. And yeah, and as far as this pink line here, this is just an anchor VWAP from our August 5th huge drop down on all our semis. So I noticed that we finally reclaimed it and we're holding over it, which is amazing for for our trend, right? And quickly before I go over the news and then go to your questions, uh, maybe common knowledge to some, but not for all. I just like to always bring this up towards the end of especially during this time of the year, where there's tends to be a little bit more volatility in the market. If you did not know, I'm hoping I teach you something here, which is our VIX. Our VIX it basically gauges the fear in the market, volatility in the market. Um, so one thing you want to be looking at is just anything over 20. Anything over 20 is highly volatile. So you want to remain under 20 for for healthy price action. Um, Otherwise, candles could go, 30, 40 cents in a single candle, as opposed to just a, smaller, high volume candles, right? Anything over 30, I would personally recommend you take the day off. I do not trade, and I would not recommend anyone to trade on VIX over 30. It's highly risky, it's highly vulnerable for your assets, and it is going to be nerve-wracking. So just always worth mentioning, just for everyone to know. Okay, and now let us take a look at our news for the week. Right. So for the news for the week, many of you probably know or recognize this website, Forex Factory. It essentially just tells you any market related news, right? But some things that most people do look at, we're just going to be looking at the red, our red folders here, right? Red indicates it's going to have an influence on the market, right? And you may hear, let this settle when it comes out at 8:30, let it settle, or at 10 o'clock there's some news, let it settle. But what you may not know is there are some news here that does have some significance as well, right? And I'm just going to briefly try to explain some of them for you. So our Chicago PI think is going to have some type of influence on the market, right? So if it is positive and it is negative, I'm just going to, hopefully you guys can see that. Let's probably do it in red so it's a little brighter. All right, so for this one, if we do have positive results or some negative results. So for positive results, it's going to be great for the high yield bonds. And it could give SPY a decent boost, right? However, on the negative side, you will see quite a bit of a sell-off on the XLI sector, which is the industry sector of SPY, and as well as the SOX, which is the ticker that I mentioned before that I was looking for the breakout, right? This is our semiconductor ETF. So if we look here, draw that again. So, right, positive high yield bonds and SPY might have some positive action, right? But now if we look at the negative aspect, we're going to see some sell off in XLI, like I mentioned, and SOX as well, because semiconductors rely heavily on manufacturers, right? So if manufacturers aren't feeling comfortable with the revenue, the costs of everything to maintain things, it's going to be even worse for those semiconductors when it comes to mass production, right? So it's going to affect them for sure. But one thing that I do want to say that is interesting is this being negative will have much of a bigger significance on SPY than it would be if it was positive. If it's positive, we might see a bounce, we might see nothing, right? But if we get something negative here, SPY will feel it, right? It might correct within a few minutes, but you're gonna see some type of price action towards the downside. So it is worth noting and taking a look, especially since it's the first thing that happens when market opens, right? Another thing that I wanted to point out was our pending home sales. So same thing, we're gonna go positive and we're gonna go to negative. So if it is positive, our IYR, which is our interest rate, so it's our REITs, and basically your mortgages, right? So it's gonna go up, as well as our XLRE. XLRE is the real estate sector of SPY. IYR is, like I said, our mortgages. So obviously, if people are buying more homes, then they're taking out more mortgages, and it's gonna, obviously have a bigger effect on that, right? It will also affect our XLF sector, or financial sector. So if you do trade any financial sectors, um, it will definitely have an influence on it because obviously people are taking out loans. They feel comfortable taking loans to get new houses, right? If it is bad, obviously we're going to see a decline in the IYR and the XLR. Notice how something positive affects our financial sector, but something negative may not have much of effect at all. So it is worth noting when you're taking a look and seeing how this news affects us, right? Um, so the next thing that I think, oh, and this same goes with both of these. So the effects will have, they will both have the same effect. So our 10 a.m. news and our 9 a.m. news Monday and Tuesday will pretty much essentially have the same effect. So I apologize for erasing it too soon. Uh, and then our unemployment claims is another significant topic that will come up. So for positive, for negative, again. So this will have a great influence on SPY, as well as our XLY, which is our consumer distress scenario, right? So essentially, what this means is if is discretionary is going to go up because people feel more inclined with um they feel more inclined to spend money, right? So if people aren't if there's more people working, then more money will be spent, aka our XLY will start going up quite a bit, right? Yes, and it's I apologize. It is Eastern Standard Time. Okay. So apologize for destroying my drawings again. All right. So positive SPY go up and our XLY will go up as well. So for our negatives, you will see a decline in the XLY. SPY might feel it, but it would not feel it as significantly as if this was a good thing, right? And then next big thing will be our PMI here. You can also look at the crude oil if you're investing in oils and other sectors like that. Obviously, good for the XLE, and it is good for our high yield bonds, which sometimes are backed by materials and oil and gold and so on and so forth. So, right. But the next thing that we would be significant would be our Friday PMI. So anything positive is gonna have a pretty decent boost on SPY and our XLE, which is our energy sector, and as well as our HYG, our high yield, especially the ones that are back asset backed, like oil and other metals, right? For the negative, we'll see an obvious decline in XLE because it all pertains to the energy sector. And we will see oh, I'm sorry, not XLE, XLI. That is my fault. XLI, our XLI sector. It will negatively impact the SOX, which is our manufacturing as well for our semiconductors. And SPY may or may not feel a significant drop on this, but it will definitely feel something if it is good. All right. And our last thing, we are at a 4-day trading week. So the only day that will not be you will not be able to trade will be Wednesday. Other than that, there's no half days or anything like that. We're on a full 4 day trading week. And yeah, hopefully you guys learned something from me here today. I'm gonna go through some of the questions here. Can you look at MNQ? MNQ is essentially just your QQQ. Um, I'm not too sure what you're looking for on MNQ because when it comes to our futures, you kind of just follow where the cash is on the market. And right now we just opened. Uh, so there's not any significant volume that's going to take place here. Maybe Moen might be able to step in and see something that I may not see. But for now, I personally do not trade the futures until there's some volume in the market. So at least during open, we'll see some clear price action and clear direction. And I would just stick to QQQ and kind of see how these supports and resistance will affect the futures market. And any thoughts on Mara? Please feel free to drop any other questions in the chat. Got about a few minutes here before I end the live. Ooh, Mara. What are we looking for? More likely to drop or hold steady. Let's take a look at the volume. Where do we have significant volume? So there is significant volume actually at this range that we're currently in. Quite a bit of volume here. Quite a bit of volume in this area here. Large box of volume. Do you think it will go further down? I mean, it is on a current, it's on a downtrend currently. I
One of
do,
Ayo's businesses is an IT company.
I'm sorry, were you asking a question or did you unmute by accident? All right, so we
Same
do
with
have,
a person that's a millionaire. His name is Ayo Epo.
sorry, I mute you there. All right, so there's an empty pocket of volume right here. If I zoom just a little bit in, just for our last 2 months here, there's an empty pocket of volume where there was not much volume taking place at all. So, constant selling in this zone here. So there's quite a bit of an overhead supply here. So I would look for any rejections in this area to continue because this area here could act as a demand to push price up higher, right? So right here could act as a demand. So we could see some type of relief bounce here. I'm not too sure on if there's any news related things that is pushing down this strong downtrend that is happening. But I would look before shorting anything. I would definitely look for a retest though. If you were if you were considering shorting here when we were going down, you see there was a little bit of a bounce, retest in this big area of demand, and then it continued downwards, right? So I would look for some type of relief bounce before I would think of any shorts towards the 16 area. But it is a very strong, support. So breaking under it would likely be not an easy task, and I do not think it would happen right away. Um, we do patterns wise, there could be some type of head and shoulders trying to create here, which would take quite some time to play out before we do have some down pressure. So I would just watch out for basically your area of an area of demand here, as well as your key level being about $18. So I would just take a look to see how price action reacts around $18 if we will have a bounce here or fail to support. Let's see any other questions. I'm holding stock at a loss. Oh, you're still holding it at a loss. Okay. Well, I would advise you to connect with either myself in the zone or Moen here for any advice on how to play that. As it's something more directed towards your position. Feel free to reach out to each and any one of us, and we'll go through it and take a look for you. Right? Any other questions? No problem, Nikolai. Feel free to reach out. I have no problems helping out. Any other questions from anybody else? All right. Well, I'll take that as a no. I will go ahead and end the recording now.